Boo. What's up you guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're gonna see how you can actually select and buy dividend stocks and what are the metrics that you should look for when buying dividend stocks. If you want to see some similar content about personal finance, investment and passive income, hit that subscribe button right here and right now. And let's jump into this video. So right now I got a list of 3 metrics that you should look for when buying dividend stocks. Let's go with the first one, which is dividend yield. Of course, if you're buying dividend stocks, you are looking for these dividend payments. So you want to be looking at a dividend yield that represents your risk management and also that gives you great returns. So you should aim at a percentage that is good for you, that you're comfortable with, and that is not taking too much risk, because we're gonna see how the dividend yield is impacting risk. So first thing, you don't want it to be too low. The good thing about having a low dividend is that you are probably in a safe spot. So a stock that pays a low dividend is actually safer because it's a smaller portion of the company's earnings that they are giving to shareholders. So pretty much the lower the dividend, the less money the company is spending on shareholders. And now what happens when the dividend is too high? Well, most of the time, a high dividend means that the company will probably not be able to sustain the dividend payments for a long time, because the higher it is, the higher money the company is giving to shareholders. So you should find a middle ground between a low dividend and a high dividend. For myself, what I do on my portfolio is that I aim between 3 and 5%. Most of the time I try to aim for a 4% dividend yield, which gives me great returns, and at the same time it's not too risky and not too low for me. So aim between 3 and 5 if you want to have a great dividend yield and not too risky. The second metric that I'm looking for is the PE ratio, which stands for payout ratio. I will actually make a full video explaining what the PE ratio is and how to use it in another video coming up, so subscribe if you want to see it. Now, if you use the PE ratio together with the dividend yield, you can actually get a pretty good insight on the quality of the dividend stock. So first of all, the PE ratio kind of shows how much of the earnings of a company they are paying to shareholders in form of dividends. That's why it's also known as the dividend payout ratio. So what happens when the PE ratio is too low? When looking at the PE ratio, you should aim, it's an average, but you should aim at 60% or less of a PE ratio. But what happens when it's too low? When a PE ratio is too low, for example 20, 10%, 15%, it means that the company is not paying a big amount of the earnings to shareholders. So at least something cool with that is that it means they have a lot of place to grow. They have a lot of earnings and they're only paying a small part of this to shareholders. So they have a lot of ways to reinvest in the business, make more money, and then grow the dividends. But at the same time, it also means that the company is maybe not paying that much dividend and then not planning to pay much more dividend. But if you can find a company that has a really low payout ratio and a great dividend yield of 3 to 5%, this is a great company. But now what happens when the PE ratio is too high? But first of all, know that a PE ratio can actually be more than 100%. In this case, it means that the company is paying shareholders even more money than what they actually have. So this is a bad sign for a few reasons. First, they might cut the dividend in the future. You have no idea. The dividend is not really safe because they are paying too much money and they probably have to go in debt for that. And if a company has to go to debt to pay shareholders, they may as well cut the dividend so they don't have to take debt. And also it means that sometimes they are not managing the earnings in a great way. So always keep in mind that if a company have more than 100% of payout ratio, it means they don't really have the money to pay you. So why would they continue paying you if they are losing money on this? That's why I aim for around 60% of a PE ratio, because it's safe, it's not too much, and it's not too low. So you choose how much you want. You can actually go to 70, 75, but don't go too high with the PE ratio. It can get really risky really quick. But also keep in mind that if you're only looking at the PE ratio, it might not really represent the company. So a company with a really high PE ratio might still be a really great company to invest in. You should always look at more metrics than only one metric as the PE ratio in this case. And now the third metric that I like to look at when I look at dividend stocks is the dividend growth. Because of course you're buying a dividend stock to getting paid dividends, but you also would like, and that's normal, to see a growth into the dividend payments over years, which means that the longer you hold your investment, the more money you'll get each time. And by having a company that is increasing the dividend payments every single year, every single 2 years or so, that's when you see an exponential growth into your portfolio, and that's when you really start making money. So what would be a sweet spot for you to actually aim at a dividend growth? Most dividend investors like to aim for about 7% dividend growth over 1 year. Because at this rate, with the market growth and the dividend yield growth, you'll actually get so much value out of one stock that you're beating the market and also beating inflation by quite a bit. And that's why it makes sense to actually invest into dividend companies that have a 7% increase over years. not really 7%, can be 6 or 8, but you try to aim for 7. And same thing with the PE ratio. You don't want it to be too low because then you don't get any money, and you don't want it to be too high because at this point it's pretty unsustainable to keep the dividend for the company. Because for example, well, imagine a dividend growth that is 15%, well, the dividend will be too big really soon so that the company will not be able to pay it and will actually have to cut the dividend, and you would not be happy with that. So don't look at the dividend growth that is more than 10% and be like, wow, this is great. It also can mean that the company will not be able to sustain the dividend growth over 1 year, over 2 years, over 5 years. So aim for 7, 6, 8%. It's the sweet spot for me actually, so do it if you want to. Now I'm gonna go onto a website and show you how you can find all these informations, and that's really easy actually, so let's go. Okay, I'm on my computer, let's go to this website right now. You can see I have it right here. It's called Seeking Alpha. So it's a really nice website because you can have all the informations about one stock if you just put it right here. For this example, we're gonna look at the stock called AbbVie. So just write a ticker symbol right here, and here you can have all the information about this stock in particular. So if you are interested into growth stocks, this can be interesting, but we're here for dividends, so let's just go into the dividend part. And here you have a lot of informations that are really important and some that I just showed you before. For example, here we have the dividend yield, about almost 5%, so it's a really nice company, they pay a really good dividend, and that's actually a high number, but it's still, as I said before, I aim for 3 to 5% dividends, so this company is right when I want it to be. Then right here, you can see all the money they will pay you every single year. So this is the PE ratio. You can see that it's about 45.15%, which is great. It's below 60%, so you are not risking too much, and it's not too low, it's not like 20%. And that's cool because they are using a lot of this money to pay to shareholders, and they also still have this place to grow in the future. And here you have also the 5-year dividend growth rate, so it's the growth of the dividend over the last 5 years. But we spoke about the 1-year period, but how can you find this? Let's go on this. So if you click on this thing right here, you can see that it's about 19.22% in the last year. That's a huge growth for dividend. But don't worry about this too much because AbbVie is a great dividend payer. You can see that they started paying the dividend in 2014 and increased it every single year until now. So they have a huge dividend growth over the last 5 years. You can see here more than 20%. So that's great. And here you can go on the dividend history, where it's more precise, and it's actually better to look at this in my opinion because you can see all the dividend payments, because some company paid monthly, some companies actually paid quarterly, which is the case for AbbVie, I believe. And you can see here that in 2013 they paid 40 cents for every single payment, and they increased it slowly and slowly until we reached $1.18 per quarter. So that's an example of a great company. You should look at the graph like this and see a constant growth. You don't want it to be high, low all the time, because it means this company is not really sustainable, and that when they pay a dividend, they're actually likely to cut it in the future when the stock market is doing something bad, for example. But you can see with AbbVie, at least on the last 7 years, they paid the dividend consistently and they actually increased it every single year. So that's great. Now, if we click on the dividend safety here, you can actually take a look again at the PE ratio here. And you also have a graph of the payout ratio over a long period of time. And you can see that right now it's less than 50%. And in the past, it's been a bit lower, it's been higher. So overall, they're doing great with the payout ratio. It's not like it's going up and down and up and down. So it's a safe company. They have a safe dividend and they pay a nice almost 5% dividend. So really great company. But hey guys, if you're interested into dividend growth investing, go check out this video right here where I show my whole portfolio, all the stocks that I own and all the companies I invest in. I hope you enjoyed this video. Subscribe to the channel for more content like this, and I see you guys in 3 days. Bye bye.